Cup of Joe with Grandpa Dez. Hey, Colt, how you doing? And you got water? Oh, sorry.
I'm refreshed. That's how I'm doing. Thank you.
I got Diet Coke. So,
Oh.
so this one's a little different because normally when I do this show, it's usually people I've met before. One time I think I've had a guest on that I'd never met. So you'd be the second. I don't think we've met. We may have. We have some mutual friends, so it's possible at a wrestling event or something. But I don't think we were ever like introduced or anything.
Well, if anything, I'm enjoying your Blues Brothers poster back there, so.
You know what? I moved that just for you.
Because
normally I have people that watch the show regularly will see I have a WrestleMania chair in that spot, and then the Blues Brothers is off to the side, so you can kind of see it, but it's kind of hidden. So I put it in a nice position, and then if you can never get this right, I'm trying to move you. You'll see the WrestleMania chair.
Which WrestleMania chair do you have? I'll give you a story.
Dallas. Were you were there that weekend, right?
I assume so.
So if we did meet, it would have been there because I went to a couple parties that some wrestlers were at, and and we've got some mutual friends, so it's possible we might have met there because that's the only WrestleMania I ever went to. Yeah. Now
I was there's a notorious clip of me as a fan in WrestleMania 13 punching Road Warrior Hawk. You can find it on YouTube, but. When I did the Art of Wrestling and I went to Jamie Dundee's house, he had his room of gimmicks, and he had the WrestleMania 13 chair there. And I told him the story, and he goes, and then he had me sign it.
Oh wow! So that's cool. I didn't know that. I've listened to a lot of Art of Wrestling, but I don't think I heard that one. So I didn't know that story, and I should know. I probably heard the story about you punching Hawk, but I'm an old man and I probably forgot it. So
understandable.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for doing this. I'm sure that, you get a lot of people that have you on, to discuss your wrestling career, and, it'll probably come up at some point in this conversation, but I really wanted to talk to you about some of the other stuff that you do, because that's what really interests me. You're a great wrestler, and I've been a fan, for a long time. I find it fascinating, the way that you've carved out a career for yourself and shown other people that there's a different way to do it. And you've done really well, with the podcast and with the pro wrestling tees and your own stuff. Like you've just shown, hustling, John Cena talks about hustle, loyalty, and respect. Well, you got the hustling down for sure. And I assume the loyalty and respect too.
Are you saying I don't have loyalty and respect?
I have no idea. I assume, you're pretty well liked in the industry. So I would have to think. Yeah,
I would like to think, yes.
Well, I've never heard anyone say a bad word about you, to be honest. Well, maybe one person, but I think he was bitter.
And to be fair, I if nobody says anything bad, if you have nobody that says anything bad about you, like, I don't know, that's not real life.
They're probably
even the sweetest people in the world have people that despise them, and that's their own demons that they have to work through. And yeah, there's some people. Listen, I know there's people that talk, smack about me, but I know that I'm true to myself and I'm a good person, so it doesn't really bother me.
I think that's the best way to go, because you're never going to please everybody, right?
Right.
And honestly, if you try too hard to please everybody, you're probably, like you said, you're not going to be true to yourself, and you're going to end up pissing off some people that actually really do like you.
Well, I'm the one that talks shit about the people who try to please everybody. So
okay,
I hate those people.
Honestly, that's the number one criticism that I've gotten personally, like just because I am like, that's just kind of my nature. I kind of want to please people. And I kind of learned, like I said, I'm old. That's a gimmick, right? Grandpa Dez. And so I've learned over the years, over maybe the last few years, just, just don't try to please everyone. Just please the people that are important and please yourself.
And be a good person.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so you're doing like, like I said, you had the podcasting thing, but you've got, are you still doing the one where you were like taking people's phone calls and turning them into shows?
Yeah, I have a podcast called Wrestling Anonymous, which is my weekly podcast that I'm doing. And I'd invite anyone in here, even if you don't listen to the show. Like if you have a funny story, or it's not even fun or funny, it's a story from all all the moods and all the genres. Like, there's a lot of sad calls, there's a lot of inspirational calls, a lot of fun and funny calls, a lot of weird calls. And that's the great thing about the show with the spectrum, is that it just could be anywhere. So, I find the podcast Wrestling Anonymous, and there's a number and email there if you have something. But the Art of Wrestling, the archives are still up, and I'm still doing Art of Wrestlings. I actually have, I haven't told anybody. You could be, breaking news here.
Hey.
I have 2 in the can that I actually did. I'm going to release in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. And so I just don't want to be a sucker to anybody's schedule. Like, for 10 years, I did it every single week, and it was just a lot of pressure. So, I took all the time off, and I kind of doing it at my own beat. Is there a cat back there?
Yeah, Smokey did a run in there. He likes the poster. So his hiding spot is behind that original 6 banner there. There's a little cubby behind there, so he'll jump into there soon. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, my eyes are itching from across the screen right now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So the Art of Wrestling is still up, and the archives are all up for free with ads, ad free on Patreon. And then I also I'm about to release. I did a podcast called Pro Wrestling Fringe, which was the first time in a long time that a lot of people heard of the Tom McGee story.
Oh yeah,
and Dave Meltzer actually was the one who was the analyzer on the pod. So I'll do a story.
Oh, cool.
And then I'll do an analysis with somebody about the story. And those were actually bought and paid for by a podcasting company years ago, and now they've released the rights to me. So pretty soon I'm going to put those up on free podcast too. And I've done a new one to add to the whole thing. So I have Pro Wrestling Fringe, I have Wrestling Anonymous, I have Art of Wrestling in the podcast landscape. And like you said, I just can't not do something.
Hey. You said, you're in parts unknown right now, but part of the reason you're doing this is because, you're just itching to do something. Right. So I'm glad that you're, doing this with me. This is cool. Dave, you mentioned one of our mutual friends. I've been trying to nail down a time for him to come on this show. He's going to do it. It's just, he's a hard guy to schedule. I'm sure you've experienced that in the past. You've had him on your show, right?
I had him on the Art of Wrestling where man, just think about that. I haven't thought about that. It was for a Kirk White show who just passed away. Yeah. And while I was there, he came, because I would only do the Art of Wrestling. So I only do them in live and in person.
Okay.
Which is a good thing I quit before the pandemic, because the show would have just went to shit.
Yeah. Well, you could do this now, but it's similar, I would think, but not the same.
Yeah. And I don't have to it's, I think the podcast, the weekly podcast Art of Wrestling has kind of ran its course, and there's so many of them it has popped up. So I'm just kind of doing them at my own pace. But I had Dave on back in the day, and I remember, so some here, this is kind of some inside baseball, but I had a company who sold ads for me, and I would try to put the ads on the episodes that would do really well. And so the ones that didn't do too well, I wasn't pissing off my advertisers. And I remember I had a week where I didn't have any ads, and I was like, okay, I'll put the Meltzer one here. And holy fuck,
I was going to say,
yeah, I just didn't know. I didn't know. Yeah. And so I was just like, well, he's not a wrestler. Maybe, he's a journalist. And
he's got so many fans.
Yeah. And this was 2000, maybe 13 or 14, but it doubled everybody's. And I was like, that was a mistake by me there. So
I had Alvarez on about a month ago, and that one doubled pretty much everything else. And then the other one that did really well was, I think you probably know Oliver Kopp.
I do not. Sorry,
okay.
Oliver.
No. I just, because he knows a lot of guys in AEW and a lot of wrestlers, so I don't know. But I had him on. But I think the reason that one did so well is because I had my sister on, and she was in the still that was in the advertisement for the show, and she's cute. So I'm pretty sure it's the only time I've ever had second time I had a woman on the show. So I'm pretty sure that's why. And actually, come to think of it, the other woman did really well too. So I think, having a girl in your picture helps with the young male demos.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess because most of your guests are guys. And again, you're not doing the you didn't really do the video. It's all audio, right?
It was all audio. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no. So like listening to the stuff you were doing, and the other thing was the movie, the Road Diaries.
Mhm.
To me, that's what interests me. Is not, I mean, you can hear, WWE is a really good job with their documentaries, and and AEW as well, with their video packages on the countdowns and all that. But it's building up a story. I like to see the actual people behind the stories. And I think that's what your movie did really well. And I think that's what your podcasts do. Like the people kind of let themselves go. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do on this show is introduce people to people that they might know, but a different side of them, maybe hear them talking about things they don't always talk about. Because I mean, I'm sure you've done lots of these, and I'm sure everyone has their own different slant on what they want to do, but that's just kind of what I'm trying to do. So hopefully it works. So far, it's been fun. I'm getting to meet a lot of cool people, so that's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, the wrestling. I did three of the movies, but yeah, the first one was definitely the most successful. It was the Wrestling Road Diaries, me, Daniel Bryan, Brian Danielson, and Sal Rinauro, who's the unsung hero. But essentially, the movie now is what it was filmed to be. Was this love letter to like all these it was like a love letter to like Beyond the Mat and Wrestling with Shadows. Is like being able to watch it and see all these famous wrestlers in the background and stuff 10 years later. When I was in developmental, like 2007, 2008, me and Kurt Hawkins and Zack Ryder and Luke Gallows, like we would all get together and just watch these movies and just like spot all the people in the background, and so you got to think that this movie is, it was filmed in 2009. And so if you go back and you look at it, you probably see a young Seth Rollins and a young Cesaro and Kevin Owens. All of these guys are just in the background.
Kingston, probably.
Of course. Yeah. There was a match with Johnny Gargano where he was like, it was Gargano versus Bryan, and Gargano wasn't even a thing. And I was remember
when I saw the movie, I don't even think I knew who Johnny Gargano was.
You wouldn't have, No. I remember at the time, Alex Shelley was saying that this guy was going to be good. And I remember watching him and I was like, oh yeah, he is going to be good. And so that's why for that movie, we wanted Bryan to wrestle him because, he was about to go to WWE, and like to be able to pass this knowledge on or have this experience would be great for Johnny. And now 10 years later, you see how far he's come. It's cool.
If you ever did a re-release, the perfect postscript would be your match with Bryan on Thanksgiving. The Thanksgiving show, the AEW.
Just him kicking me in the face.
Hey, whatever. I mean, it was a big moment for both of you. And it was a fun match.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Probably not the match maybe you'd have in mind, but there's a role that you each had to play, and I thought you both played it really well.
Yeah. I'm part of the storytelling process. I have no problem with that. I don't think anyone's ever thought I've had a problem with that. So
no. I mean, it's amazing the way that story actually worked out. I don't know how far in advance Tony booked those cities, but the fact that it worked out, that you had there's like 8 million people in Dark Order, so that helps. But it was really cool. And as soon as they did the first one, I'm like, oh crap. I'm like, Colt's going to be wrestling in Chicago. I DM'd John Silver because I had him on a different show that I do. It's an MMA show, and he came on to, we talked about UFC, and he loves UFC.
He loves it.
I DM'd him, and I'm like, you're going to get your dream match, because he had said this was in March. So this is before Bryan had even left WWE. He's like, one of my dream opponents is Danielson.
Well, that's very cool.
And then for him to get to wrestle him in his hometown, I mean, that's so cool.
Yeah, you should see Johnny Boy with all these MMA guys backstage, with Men of the Year. Like, he's just in heaven just seeing them all. Yeah,
probably just geeking out.
a lot of the wrestlers are. I'm not that familiar with UFC. Dan Lambert's been very nice. You could tell he just loves what he's doing.
Yeah,
you could tell he has a lot of respect, I think, for the wrestlers also. I'm sure the MMA fighters do too, but the
ones that get it, right?
Well, I don't know. I just imagine if I went to the UFC and I was doing an angle with them, I would probably be intimidated and I wouldn't want to step on. I just kind of be to my own self. So I'm sure that's what's going through their head.
That would be weird. If you think about
Of
it,
course.
like you doing a UFC angle, be like getting in the cage and challenging. I don't even know
Yeah.
who Francis Ngannou. Hey,
I don't
never
know.
know.
I don't know the people. Frank Mir, I
Okay,
know him. Is he still
yeah,
around?
yeah. Well, kind of. Actually, he's doing the celebrity boxing gimmick now. His daughter is doing MMA though.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how old he is. Well, I guess he's similar age to you, but I mean, when you're in MMA, I mean, you could go another 10 years. I mean, you look, in the ring, you don't. There's not much difference between you. You're better, but in terms of physically, like you don't look a lot different than you did like 15 years ago. Maybe better. Like you
Yeah, I
probably.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think you probably learned how to pace yourself better and not be so hard on your body. Like you look at a guy like Dustin, like, he looks better now than he did when he was 25.
Yeah.
Like
I
it's
used to do.
amazing.
I did a tour with Dustin once. When his demons were there, and I met.
Yeah.
Like it was in the England for one PW, and he looked fucking rough. And
Yeah.
so
I
he's
was in a
had some.
sorry, go ahead.
Just he's had some periods in his career where you'd be amazed to say like, hey. In 20 years, when he's 53, he's going to be in amazing shape, and he's going to be mentally, there and amazing, and
Yeah.
and it's great that it's happened for him.
And to do a match, like he was just in a high profile match like
Mm-hmm.
yesterday as we're recording, 2 days ago when this airs, with Sammy Guevara, like who wasn't even born when when he debuted in WWE, which he was already a veteran by that point.
Right.
I was in the front row for that match actually, in Winnipeg. I was heckling him. He's like, "Your daddy'd be ashamed of you." I'm like, just a kid, right? Yeah, that's yeah, long time. So yeah, so that's what I say. Like you're paving the way, and I mean, and honestly, like I feel like the stuff that you did, indirectly, if it wasn't for the kind of the path you paved, there might not be an AEW.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
time for you to stay. Go on.
you're humble enough to probably not look at it that way, but some of the guys involved kind of did the same thing you did.
Yeah, I correlated right to the Young Bucks. I mean, they said it in their book too. They're like, we
Yeah.
watched what Colt did, and then I watched them watch what I did, and I gave them all the advice in the world, and I was like, you got to do this, and you got to do this, and this is how it works. And then it just all blew up for them, and then they did it correctly.
Yeah.
There's not that there's not like regrets, but like I'm very controlling. So like I was always afraid to like let people help me, and
Mhm.
and still am. I it's something I'm working on, is asking for help. But they were able to kind of like open up their network and get a lot of help, and just they blossomed so much. And it was they're amazing. They're amazing wrestlers. They're amazing people. They're amazing businessmen. And if it wasn't for, I don't think for them like saying yes to Tony, like we wouldn't all be here today. So
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Like, it's not just you, but I'm just saying, like, you were a key part of it. And then, Cody leaving, WWE and showing people you could do that. And then, and Jericho and Moxley bringing the star power, and Tony having the money, and then the Japan, right?
don't forget about Kenny being the best wrestler
Oh
in
yeah,
the
yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah. How can I forget? Well, Kenny and Jericho, like the
Yeah,
match,
Right.
and then that's what. But yeah, Kenny, I mean, he chose AEW over WWE, and he had offers on the table for both. So, but I mean, looking back, it's hard to imagine that he would have taken the WWE offer, but at the time, it was a lot of money.
Sure, but
Yeah.
you have to, like Kenny. Yeah, he took a path that so many kind of did take, but then he was able to capitalize on it. I mean, you look at, I guess, like I would compare it like Stan Hansen or Dr. Death, some of these wrestlers who just like thrived in Japan and became megastars. And Kenny did become a megastar. He was the number one wrestler out there. And then, right, and Dr. Death and Stan Hansen, I'm not saying that they weren't great, but what Kenny's done on the American scene with AEW and with these guys to be able to start a promotion. Yeah. It's unprecedented.
And he's a guy, like he's from my hometown. I'm in Winnipeg. I don't know if I told you that. And I mean, he wrestled in a bar, that's a 10-minute drive from my house, and I'm sure
we all
saw
did.
him.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah. I remember, yeah, and I specifically remember AJ Styles coming in and for a match and wrestled him, and I didn't see that show. And then after the fact, I was listening to a local. It wasn't a podcast, but it was like on a university radio station, and Andrew, what's his last name? Showcross, I think the promoter here. He was one of the co-hosts of the show, and he was talking about Kenny, like just putting over Kenny. Even though it was AJ that was the opponent. Like he knew Kenny's the guy you got to promote, and so I remember, okay, that's a guy I got to keep an eye on. And
well, I mean, that's why I've championed independent wrestling for so long, and still do, even though I'm not taking as many dates now because of AEW and also because of COVID and everything. But yeah. You have it's guaranteed that in 10 years, these people you see at these shows will be the next biggest stars. And you can be that hipster who says, I saw him when, I saw her when, I saw them when. It's true. Like, I do it with comedy all the time. I love comedy, and I go to local comedy all the time in Chicago. And wherever I am, when I do shows in LA, like, that's my thing. I love comedy. I go to comedy shows, and I've seen so many, $1 million acts in front of 20 or 30 people. And it's just so fun to see and follow their career from a young perspective, and to watch these men and women and non-binary or whatever it might be, go on to just achieve their dream. And you get to be a part of that story, and you get to say, I saw them when. There's so many who get to say, I saw Kenny in a bar in Winnipeg in front of 20 people. And for all of us, that's why I think it's so important to go and support local independent wrestling.
It's funny you mentioned comedy, because that's something I used to do like years ago, before my second child, my first daughter, was born. And in fact, you can see her in the background there, the tall head.
John Belushi?
No. Next to John Belushi.
Dan Aykroyd?
No, keep going.
It's your daughter?
Yeah, the little picture there. So anyways, so the reason I mentioned that is because one of the guys I used to do comedy with, I'm actually gonna have on the show later this week. So and I have not seen him or talked to him. Like, I DM him all the time, but I haven't actually talked to him since we did comedy together. So we're talking mid-90s. So that's gonna be fun.
Nice.
I'm looking forward to that. But I saw, like you talk about, I saw Rosie O'Donnell, performing at the Comedy Oasis in Winnipeg in front of, like 50 people. Bill Maher, I opened for him. Me and my buddy Daryl, we did a parody song of More Than Words by Extreme, but but it was called On Her Rags. And it was, not. And so he complained to the manager, and he says, if those two, if the NyQuil twins ever open for me again, I'm not performing. So that's my claim to fame. And so he was kind of an asshole, and never been a fan ever since.
One of my favorites is from Winnipeg.
Oh yeah, who?
Yeah, John Doerr.
Oh yeah, John Doerr for sure. I didn't, I honestly didn't know he's from Winnipeg. I know he's Canadian, but John Doerr.
I believe he's from Winnipeg.
You're probably right. There's so many people from Winnipeg. It's ridiculous. I can't wait till AEW comes here. You're going to get a big homecoming with Kenny and Jericho and Don. I had my book that I wrote. You see in the middle there, the three classic Canadian authors, Jericho, Bret Hart, and myself. I had Don had me on his show in Winnipeg here. When I released that book. So I always appreciative of him for that. Him and Joe Aiello. Another guy I'm supposed to have on the show in the next couple weeks or so. DJ from here. He worked for WWE for a little while as an interviewer in the, I don't know, early 2000s or something. Yeah. It's a small world, but it's a big world. Because I never know. I might bring a name and you'll be like, oh yeah, I know that guy. And other ones like, no.
Say John Doerr, I would know.
Yeah. John Doerr I've never met, I don't think. Maybe. No, but comedy is, there's so many great comics, and I've never gone to a live comedy show and not laugh my ass off. Like, if you're performing,
I can't say the same, but
well, if you're paying, if it's open mic night, forget it. But if it's like, if you're seeing a feature act, and between the feature and the opener and the middle guy, one of them's going to make you laugh. Like, I've never not laughed. At least not for everyone, but at least there's always one act on the show that makes me laugh. Like, I don't know, but I guess maybe I haven't gone to as many as you. I mean, I used to work in a comedy club, and I did open mic, and yeah, I mean, the open mic guys were horrible. I still to this day remember this one guy that had this thing. My sister has the IQ of a crouton, folks. And every time I see a crouton, I just remember this. That was his voice. Yeah. My sister has the IQ of a crouton, folks. He said that line every night. It was burned into my head. And these are the people I was coming up with. So we're almost out of time here. One thing I wanted to say, and this is gonna be weird, but bear with me. I love your theme song.
Thank you.
But it doesn't hold a candle to the original. You're the only guy with the balls to come out to a Barry Manilow song in pro wrestling. I mean, obviously it works for the name. Is that literally the only reason you did it, or are you like a big fan of that kind of music?
No, I'm not a fan of Barry Manilow, but
okay. The song's great.
I know. I think I was coming out to it as a heel, and then Ian Rotten is a huge Barry Manilow.
Oh, really?
And that's like one of the reasons why he booked me for IWA Mid-South. Like
because of the song.
Because of the song. And like he just, it's just like it was in his head. It's that song. He loved that song. He likes me, and then he booked me because why not? And then the rest is history with my history with IWA Mid-South. So obviously like it just made sense to come out to it as a heel, I think. And then later, Kid Russell sings my song now, but before this song, I had him remix Copacabana.
I thought so. Like when you were on Access, like around that period.
No, it would have to be before WWE.
Okay,
so like 2005. I think 2005, 2006, 2007.
But
because
for
I was
ROH.
For ROH,
yeah.
Because originally I just came out to Copacabana, and then it was over. But then I thought like, maybe my character's getting a little stale. Like there's only so long where you're going to cheer for the guy coming out to Copacabana. But I knew I wanted to keep, like, people knew me as the guy who came out to Copacabana. So that's why I had him remix Copacabana. So you still had that flavor in there, but it was a little more up to date or modernized.
And the new one's got, a little bit of that flavor.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The guy who remixed it, Kid Russell sang it, but a guy named Matt kind of like did the instruments behind it, and he kept in the flavor of without like the most legal way he could. He did
kind of like FTR's version of Midnight Express.
Yes, exactly.
So anybody that watches this show or has listened to it knows what's coming next. So bear with me here. Here we go. And here it comes. I just have to do this with you on the show here.
Is it a naked picture of me or something?
No, it's not a naked picture of you. Ask for more at the Copacabana, the hottest spot north of Havana. There we go.
I don't know if you could legally do that. I think it was less than 6 seconds. It was okay.
Hang on. Now I got to get it to stop. Hang on.
I can't hear it, so you're doing okay.
Okay. You couldn't hear none of it?
Oh. No, after you put us back both on screen.
Yeah. I got to watch the amount I play it. Although it's a karaoke version, so we're probably okay. But anyways, yeah, so that's about our time. So now I got to serenade Colt Cabana to one of my favorite all-time wrestling entrances. I say one of. It's not at the top. What's your favorite all-time wrestling entrance? You're a fan.
I don't know.
They're maybe not. Name one that you like. Like, hey, that's easy enough. You don't have to say your total favorite.
Dude, is it weird if I said Justin Hawk Bradshaw?
Which one? Like in WWE? Like
in WWF
or WWF? Yeah, I don't even remember that. So because I'm always one with the actual songs. Like I think like the ECW entrances were really cool. Yeah, and I mean some of the AW ones.
I mean Sandman, Enter Sandman.
Yeah, I mean that's classic,
legendary, classic.
Yeah, we can go with that. Gee, I'll
give you one.
What?
Boogie Woogie Man.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Valiant, boy from New York City.
Yeah.
Talking about the boy from New York City. Yeah, that was good. So for me though, Midnight Express. Like,
Yep.
you know, and FTRs is pretty good, but I nothing beats that. Oh, and Eddie Gilbert, Hot Stuff, Donna Summer.
Sure.
Yeah, that was awesome. So, all right. So you know what? I promised you we'd keep you under 30 minutes, and we're coming up here. I got Lance Storm in at 29:58. He was really impressed. So for Colt, I've been Grandpa Dez, and this has been Cup of Joe with Grandpa Dez.